Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're embarking on a totally fascinating biological journey. We're going deep inside our own bodies to explore the complex and frankly incredible structure of the human lungs. Actually, I want you to do something with me right now. Just take a really deep breath in and let it out. Have you ever actually thought about the journey of that single breath? Like what happens from the exact moment air enters your nose to the millisecond oxygen is delivered deep into your body? It's this hidden, microscopic process that keeps us alive every second of the day. Every single time you breathe, an extraordinarily precise sequence of events takes place, relying on biological architecture that's been perfected over millions of years. And today, well, we're going to break down that magnificent architecture step by step. So here's our roadmap for today. First, the respiratory journey begins. Then we hit the gateway, larynx and trachea. After that, it's a tale of two lungs, down into the upside-down bronchial tree, and finally, the functional unit, alveoli.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1. The respiratory journey begins.
We're starting our top-down journey right at the front door, where the outside world meets the inside of your body. Air first enters through your two nostrils, and immediately inside is a soft area called the vestibule. Now, this is our body's built-in defense system in action. The vestibule is lined with hairs that act kind of like a physical strainer, trapping large dust particles, pollen, and just general debris right at the door before it can invade your delicate internal systems. From there, the air moves deeper into the harder nasal cavity, which takes filtration to a whole new level. It relies on millions of microscopic sweeping hairs called cilia, along with secreted mucus to further filter, warm, and moisten the breath. It's basically an elite biological air conditioning unit. Finally, that prepared air reaches the pharynx, or what we call the throat. What's absolutely wild here is that the middle part of the pharynx, the oropharynx, is actually a shared highway. Both the air you breathe and the food you eat pass through this exact same space. So it relies on a completely flawless traffic control system to make sure nothing goes down the wrong pipe.
That brings us right to Section 2, the gateway, our larynx and trachea.
We're transitioning deeper into the throat now, meeting the highly specialized structures that protect our airway and, actually give us the ability to speak. The larynx, commonly known as the voice box, is built from exactly 9 distinct pieces of cartilage. And we really need to appreciate this intricate design, because these pieces work together flawlessly. 3 of them are paired, meaning you've got a left and a right. These are the arytenoid, the corniculate, and the cuneiform cartilages. They're tiny, highly specialized, and super important for things like vocal cord movement. Then we have the 3 unpaired heavy hitters. The thyroid cartilage is the biggest one, forming what we all know as the Adam's apple. Just below that sits the cricoid cartilage, forming a really sturdy base. But the absolute hero of this entire region, that's the epiglottis. It acts as this crucial elastic trapdoor. Whenever you swallow food or water, the epiglottis instinctively folds down to seal off your airway. It is literally the ultimate gatekeeper, making absolutely sure your food goes safely down into your stomach and never into your lungs. Past the larynx, air drops directly into the trachea, or the windpipe. And the engineering of this tube is just fascinating. It's supported by 15 to 20 C-shaped or U-shaped pieces of cartilage. Think of these rigid structures kind of like the metal rings inside a vacuum hose. They act as permanent scaffolding, keeping the airway wide open so it doesn't just collapse flat under negative pressure when you inhale deeply. But here's a question. Why are they just C-shaped and not full closed rings? Well, it's because the back of the trachea is made of a soft, flexible muscular membrane. This is such an incredible evolutionary design feature. See, the esophagus, your food pipe, runs directly behind the trachea. That soft membrane on the backside of the windpipe prevents the hard cartilage from rubbing up against and damaging the esophagus every single time you swallow a huge bite of food. So the trachea literally yields space to the digestive system when it needs to, while still maintaining its rigid, protective shape in the front.
Moving on to Section 3, a tale of two lungs.
Okay, we have officially made it down into the chest cavity to explore the massive primary organs of the respiratory system. Just to ground this in reality, consider its weight, 625 grams. That is the physical mass of a typical adult right lung. It's substantial, it's spongy to the touch, and it is absolutely packed with a complex network of branching tubes and blood vessels.
But wait, here's a fun fact. Our lungs are not perfectly identical twins. While the right lung sits at that 625 grams, features 3 main lobes, and is divided into 10 highly organized segments, the left lung tells a completely different story. It's only 565 grams, has just 2 main lobes and 8 segments. So why the dramatic difference? Well, it's because the left lung is specifically smaller and lighter to make room for your heart. Your anatomy literally shifted its size, sacrificing a whole lobe and a significant amount of mass on the left side just to create a perfect, specialized pocket to cradle your beating heart. How cool is that? Now, both of these incredible organs are safely wrapped in a brilliant protective membrane called the pleura. Let's decode this medical jargon so we truly get how it works. The pleura is essentially a two-layered continuous sac. The inner layer is the visceral layer. In anatomy, viscera means soft internal organs, so the visceral layer is the one directly touching and securely attached to the lung tissue itself. The outer layer, acting as a boundary, is the parietal layer, which attaches to the chest wall. But here is the crucial part. Trapped in the microscopic space between these two layers is the pleural fluid. Because your lungs expand and contract thousands upon thousands of times a day, this fluid acts as a vital, highly effective lubricant. Honestly, think of it like oil in the car engine. It completely prevents any damaging friction against your ribs or chest wall during breathing, allowing for a perfectly smooth, gliding motion with every single breath you take.
All right, let's head into section 4, the upside-down bronchial tree.
Get ready, because we're about to zoom in continuously from the macro level straight into the micro level of the lungs' branching structures. Scientists and doctors often refer to this internal architecture as the bronchial tree. It's a really powerful, elegant metaphor that helps you visualize exactly what's going on in your chest. I want you to picture your respiratory system as a massive upside-down oak tree. That trachea we just talked about, that's the thick main trunk. And as it enters the lungs, it splits into large branches, which then splits into smaller branches and eventually leads out to millions upon millions of microscopic leaves.
Let's trace this pathway step by step as the trunk splits. First, it divides into the right and left primary bronchus as it initially enters the lung tissue. Then it divides further into the secondary or lobar bronchus, named that way because it's now entering those specific lobes of the lungs we discussed earlier. It splits yet again into the tertiary or segmental bronchus, which supplies the highly specific segments. It just keeps branching, getting smaller, narrower, and a lot more intricate, until it becomes a tiny bronchiole. And notice a major structural shift that happens right here. Up until the bronchi, these pathways were firmly supported by those cartilage rings to keep them wide open. But by the time we reach the incredibly narrow terminal bronchioles, that cartilage completely disappears. The walls become entirely muscular and highly flexible, getting perfectly prepared for the delicate process that's about to happen.
Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, the functional unit alveoli. We finally reach the microscopic destination of our anatomical journey. Let's see how this all builds at the very end of the line. After the terminal bronchiole, we cross a critical anatomical border. We officially leave the air-conducting region, whose only job was to filter, warm, and transport air, and we enter the respiratory region. The precise sequence goes like this. We move from a respiratory bronchiole into a remarkably tiny channel called an alveolar duct. This duct opens up into a cavity called an atrium, which is entirely surrounded by delicate, grape-like clusters known as alveolar sacs. And inside those delicate sacs are the alveoli. So the really crucial point here is that these millions of tiny alveoli are the actual leaves of our upside-down tree. They are the ultimate final destination for every single breath you take. Just think about this for a second. Everything we just covered, from the filtering hairs in your vestibule, to the protective epiglottis trapdoor, to the rigid C-shaped cartilage of the trachea, all the way down through the intricate branching of the bronchial tree, it all exists for one sole purpose: to safely deliver clean, perfectly warmed air right here. It's inside these unimaginably thin, microscopic alveoli that the actual life-sustaining magic happens. This is where the critical exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place across a barrier that is literally thinner than a single strand of a spider's web.
So we've completely traced the incredible, complex journey of a breath, from the open air all the way down to the very edges of your lungs. But understanding this massive structural network begs a really fascinating question to leave you with. So what happens after the oxygen actually reaches these microscopic leaves? How exactly does that fresh oxygen cross over that microscopic barrier into your flowing bloodstream, traveling to power every single cell in your body through internal cellular respiration? Well, my friends, that is a whole other amazing biological journey. I really hope this explainer gave you a deep, lasting appreciation for the intricate, breathtaking machinery keeping you alive right now. Keep learning, keep breathing, and thanks so much for exploring with me.